Sports.
We are Blackmore. We are St. Louis.
It's a hot, steamy night in the Gateway City, and this is St. Louis Cardinals baseball. From Busch Stadium, the Cardinals play host to the Atlanta Braves. The Redbirds lineup has once again become explosive. Leading the way has been their all-star second baseman, Matt Carpenter. He might be the MVP of the National League. Catcher Yadier Molina back in the lineup and back behind the plate tonight. He's one of the best closers in baseball, Craig Kimbrell, the right-hander for the Atlanta Braves. The Cardinals hope they don't see him in game number 2. And welcome to St. Louis Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. That's Rick Horton. I'm Dan McLaughlin. The Cardinals started such an important stretch of baseball last night against teams that you're anticipating being in postseason play. Game 1, well, turned out pretty well.
It sure did. First of 17, in fact, against playoff contenders. And the Cardinals did it the way they've done it all season long. Timely hitting, a lot of two-out hits for St. Louis, and they also had good pitching. Joe Kelly was terrific. The Cardinals bullpen was able to hang on. And really, when you play good teams, your strengths have to be strengths, and you have to kind of minimize your weaknesses, and the Cardinals certainly did it in Game 1.
Yeah, the Cardinals weren't sure about an upcoming start for Jake Westbrook, but now we know a reason why he's been struggling. He's out with a back strain, so Carlos Martinez, the young, hard-throwing right-hander, has been recalled from AAA Memphis.
Well, Jake's been a gamer, no question about that. He's been working hard to get back on top after being on the disabled list for some time. Clearly not right. So the Cardinals are giving Carlos Martinez another chance, and it's a big one and a big opportunity for him over the next 6 weeks.
And it's a big game tonight for another big right-hander. That is Adam Wainwright. He'll take on the team that originally drafted him, then traded him away. Waino goes tonight in Game 2. Clayton Kershaw has been outstanding this year. And I'd say the leader right now in the clubhouse for the Cy Young Award, but right on his heels, Adam Wainwright. You see his National League ranks, so it's a big start for Adam here this evening.
And he's getting better, too, Dan. That's what I like about what we saw at Adam Wainwright in his last start. He kind of plateaued a bit, but he's still one of the top 2 or 3, as you mentioned, pitchers in the National League. And when he's right, he piles up the strikeouts, and he keeps the pitch count low. And let's hope he can do that against the Braves in Game 2 here tonight.
So Wainwright is 14-7 on the other side. It's a right-hander, Chris Medlin.
He's been as good as anybody since getting into the Atlanta rotation. This year, not as good as last year. Last year, he was terrific. This year, he's been good. He's a guy that attacks the strike zone as well.
Well, you better have faith in your teammates. In particular, if you're part of the bullpen in St. Louis. Tyler Lyons, welcome to the club.
Have some history. 1-2 in the batting race in the National League. Rico Carty and Joe Torre, 1970. Ralph Garr and Torre again in 71. Then it was Chipper Jones and Albert Pujols, 1-2 in 2008. And it's happening again. Yadier Molina, 40 multiple hit games. He is becoming a force in the National League. Many people thinking he may be the National League's MVP. He's at 332 currently. And for the Atlanta Braves, Chris Johnson has been a great find for them. Struggled a bit with the Astros, but had a lot of promise coming to fruition this year. He's at 330, and he had a very, very good month of July at 381. We'll have more from Busch Stadium. Cardinal baseball right around the corner.
Kelly as he picked up the W for St. Louis. Tonight in game number 2, the Cardinals turn to a veteran, and that's Adam Wainwright. Waino and the Cards. Game 2 comes your way next. Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. See your Mid-America Chevy dealer or log on to stlchevy.com. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake, just no equal. Beautiful night for baseball. Game 2 of this 4-game series. The St. Louis Cardinals, the Atlanta Braves. And we turn to our keys to the game, a presentation of Toyota.
Our first key is that the Cardinals are ahead after 6 innings. This Braves bullpen is the best in all of baseball. You certainly don't want to be behind going into the 9th, but I think after 6, you better be ahead. And Waino, keep building on that last start that he had, which was outstanding against the Chicago Cubs on the road trip. 11 punch-outs in 7 innings and just 5 hits allowed by Waino. A very typical Adam Wainwright start in Chicago.
Look at his numbers this year. The innings piling up as he's edging closer to 200. And also those strikeouts as well. Moving up the Cardinals all-time list. And that's a look at your Kia starter, Adam Wainwright. Freddie Gonzalez, let's take a look at his lineup. They've had some injuries and big ones. Most notable is Jason Hayward. He is not in this lineup, nor will he play this weekend. Jordan Schaefer is their lead-up man. Then Upton, Freeman, Johnson, McCann, Simmons, B.J. Upton, Elliott Johnson, and Chris Medlin. A look at the Cardinals defense around the horn, brought to you by Dobbs. Holiday, Jay, and Beltran in the outfield. It's Carpenter and Descalso on the left side of the infield. Long gets his first ever start at Busch Stadium. He's at second. Alan Craig at first. Yachty back in the lineup. He's behind the plate. And Colton Wong was used as a pinch hitter last night, but I'm sure a different feel for him this evening, making that first home start.
Cardinal fans are going to love him, especially how smooth he is around the bag at second. He is certainly providing a spark.
The first pitch is fouled back. Jordan Schaefer hitting .276 with 3 home runs and 15 RBIs. Our game time temperature is 87 degrees and very muggy here in St. Louis. There you just saw the cutter, and that was a pitch that was a lot better last time out for Adam Wainwright against the Chicago Cubs. During that winless streak, that was the pitch that was getting hit
at a 330 clip.
It's a pitch that's very easy to hang if you don't throw it right. If you get your hand underneath the ball, it will spin like a cutter, but it won't break. It's kind of a sideways spin, and it's really much more flat and hittable, almost like a batting practice fastball. So you throw a cutter, you better throw it well.
1-2 the count on Jordan Schaefer.
Dan, nice to see Dana DeMuth back to work. Our third base umpire here today. He got hit on the arm by a pitch and still wearing a brace. Chris Conroy supplied one for him yesterday, but I thought that could have been a serious issue for him.
The curveball and a strikeout. First of the night for Wainwright. Chevy Fox Tracks. Take a look at this bender.
There's 12-6 for you. High in the zone at the beginning and ends up at the bottom of the zone. Couldn't pull the trigger.
Here's Justin Upton, homered for the 24th time in last night's ball game. He is streaky personified. His first 16 games of the season, 9 home runs. He's in a stretch of 16 games in which he's hit 8. Curveball in there for a strike, 1-1. Joe Kelly picked up the win last night. 6 innings, 2 runs, a 6-2 win. That was his 4th August win in 5 starts. They've come at important times, too. Ground ball that's hit to short. Descalso, 2 away. I don't know about you, but when I look at this lineup, this is the guy that has impressed me for a long time now, and that's Freddie Freeman.
Well, he just keeps getting better and better. He's good with runners in scoring position, a lot like Alan Craig for the Cardinals. In fact, a lot of Cardinals are good this season with runners in scoring position, but Freeman, second in the National League, has good power. But their real power spot is their second spot, just like the Cardinals. And it's an interesting lineup. You have Upton with 24 homers and Beltran with 22 to lead the Cardinals.
Here's an 0-1 pitch. Breaking ball that misses outside. First 3 hitters, 2 of them have swung at the first pitch. The Braves as a team do that 32% of the time, which is the highest of any team. So you're Adam Wainwright, you know that. They like to be aggressive early in counts. What do you do as a pitcher?
Well, if they're going to be aggressive, that's exactly where you want them, because Wainwright wants something to happen early in the count. He gets the strikeouts if he gets deep, but his goal is first couple of pitches, get him out. That's Greg Walker, the hitting coach. An outstanding hitter himself, days in the American League. And if that's their approach, Dan, just don't throw it down central. Try to hit corners with it.
Earlier this season, Adam Wainwright picked up career strikeout number 1,000, and with that strikeout this inning, 3 away from Chris Carpenter, the all-time list in St. Louis Cardinals history. If you compare the two and you go side by side with their numbers, eerily similar.
Very much so.
1-2 the count with 2 outs and nobody on. On base percentage, Freeman at .391. So not only has he made himself into a tremendous hitter, but a very good eye. And an all-star this year as the fans voted him in. A 2-2 pitch.
Not sure if it's a fair comparison, but I've always thought that, Chris Carpenter is Chris Carpenter, and then he goes out and competes, and he's Chris Carpenter. I've always felt that Wainwright, an entirely different personality, much more easygoing, but when he pitches, he turns into Chris Carpenter.
Yep, I agree.
I think that influence has been apparent.
Hard hit to the right side and past a diving Colton Wong, and a base hit into right field. The first hit of the night extends the inning to Chris Johnson. The effort there from Colton Wong. That replay brought to you by Plaza Tire Service. And here's Johnson, who's hitting .330, 10 home runs and 57 RBIs. We talked about the loss of Jason Hayward, who was hitting in the top spot in the lineup for the Atlanta Braves. And they said he looked like an entirely different player. And this team really took off when he was moved to that spot in the lineup.
That's exactly what happened. So something to overcome for the Braves. But one of the reasons I think they'll be able to is it's a team that really still is built on their pitching. Their pitching is very, very good. Second in the National League with a 3.2 ERA. The starting pitching is good, but the bullpen is even better. So you lose a bat, you're less panicky about that, I think, if you've got a team that can shut the other team down.
Kimbrel is the National League version, to an extent, of watching the great Sandman, the New York Yankees, and their closer, Mariano Rivera. Different pitchers, but same results. It's almost automatic. Here's a 1-2 pitch, and he got him. A strikeout, 2 in the inning for Adam Wainwright. Along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. And a look at Mike Matheny's lineup tonight. Beltran will bat second behind Matt Carpenter. Then we'll see Matt Holliday. Those three have been red hot. It's Alan Craig, the cleanup man, followed by Yadier Molina, who's hitting .332. John Jay, Colton Wong, Daniel Descalso, and the pitcher, Adam Wainwright.
Mike Matheny has stopped short of saying it, but he almost has a left-handed and a right-handed lineup now.
Very much so, especially with what's happened at shortstop and with the addition of Wong. Medlin and McCann. As you're going to look at the Dobbs defense, that's the batter eight tonight. Chris Medlin, this time last year, was cruising in the National League.
Well, 38 walks for Medlin in 148 innings. So as I said, like Wainwright, he pounds the strike zone. So expect these guys kind of to make it happen quickly. And really, a year ago, second half of the season, I would say best pitcher in the National League for a couple of month period. And really came out of nowhere for Atlanta and led their drive to the finish. And again, a little more kind of average 10 and 11 year this year with a 3.7, but still very good since entering the rotation in July of 2012.
Matt Carpenter, the on-base percentage, such a key for a leadoff man. It's at .383 overall, and even better, this spot in the lineup. Hitting .312. Pulled the string on that pitch, nothing in 2. Milwaukee battling Cincinnati tonight. They're in the bottom of the 4th, and that's a 1-0 lead for the Milwaukee Brewers. Pittsburgh takes on San Francisco. Here's an 0-2. Little defensive swing taken there by Elliott Johnson. And there's one away. In steps Carlos Beltran. You look up and down this lineup, whether it's Carpenter, Beltran, Holiday, Craig, Molina, Jay, all are hitting well above 300 in the month of August. So while the power may not be there, the doubles sure have been, and these guys are getting on base.
Isn't that really a form of power, though? Maybe not the home runs that you're talking about, but I think you got a team that's hitting doubles at the rate the Cardinals are, extra base hits in general. To me, that's a team that is certainly not a singles hitting team. And for a club that doesn't run a whole lot, I think you need to have extra base capability, and the Cardinals certainly have that.
Holiday on deck. And a 1-1 to Beltran. Out in front and taps it foul. Carlos hitting .378 here in the month of August. One-two pitch. Taken high. 2-2. TJ Bolin is here tonight. 6-year-old attending his first Cardinals game. Grandpa is Jess, Hall of Famer in Cape Girardeau. As Beltran breaks his bat, picks up the first Cardinal hit of the night.
You ever notice how good hitters get a lot of broken bat hits? They're strong enough, they finish their swing enough, and they're talented enough to find holes like that.
Speaking of talent, here's Matt Holliday, who's 2 for 3 last night. Coming into this series, had been 2 for his last 24, but that really didn't tell the story. He was hitting the ball very hard, but nothing really to show for it. 2 for his last 24, but he looks good at the plate, as crazy as that sounds.
I agree with you.
Mention it a lot, a career 300-plus hitter. The month of May, he hit .235. You take that month away, every other month, he's at .291. So he's right there at or around his career average of 300. .285 right now for the season. Short lead at first and an 0-1. Holiday, little flare out to center, but going out to make the catch, Elliott Johnson. Second out, and it brings in the cleanup man, Alan Craig. We're at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. It's 87 degrees, muggy. Dan, Rick, and Jim with you. Second game of this 4-game set, the Cards and the Braves.
We've added the weather.
I like it.
To that graphic. I missed that. Very nice.
Need to head over to Channel 2 and pick up Dave Murray.
Not just the temperature, but the humidity has been an issue here the last couple of days. Last night, very, very humid.
I don't think we should complain, though. It's been such a cool
agree.
month of August.
No question.
This is what we expect, right? 2 outs and a runner at first as Craig swings and misses through a changeup. Very good changeup that Medlin has.
Mike Matheny's been talking about how the ball's not been carrying this summer. And the players have come back and said, you know what, I really got that one, and it didn't go out. And the assumption is really both ways. Cardinals have not hit as many home runs as they did a year ago, and their pitching staff has not given up very many home runs. But I wonder if the humidity the last couple of days, maybe things might change a bit.
Here's an 0-1 pitch to Craig. Hits it down the right field line, and that'll slice foul and out of play. 0-2 with 2 outs and a runner at first. The Braves are running away with the National League East Division. They'll have this thing wrapped up shortly. And then you look at a team like Detroit. Postseason play. They roll in the playoffs and then have all that time off to think about it and then try to stay sharp, and they can't. You wonder if that would be a concern for Freddie Gonzalez.
Well, one of the things he's trying to do is think about
home field advantage, best record. And
absolutely.
And he's got that as his selling point to keep playing and keep playing hard and keep winning.
Talked about it last night. The Braves are sensational at home. Rarely do they lose. Certainly that's the case, especially in the second half. Atlanta's 44-18 at home. One game above 500 on the road. On the outside corner and a strikeout. The first of the night for Chris Medlin. No score after one. Tire. Stay in your seat after the game for a spectacular fireworks show. Music, fireworks, and fun. All at Busch Stadium. Tickets at cardinals.com/promotions. Joe Strom, the VP of ticket sales, telling us the Cardinals are trending to at least 3.3 million, maybe 3.4 before it's all said and done. Hits sharply to Colt Wong. On a hop, makes the play, and McCann is the first out. Colt Wong was part of that shift that they had there with Brian McCann, and he was on the outfield grass.
And still good seats available for the Cincinnati Reds series as the homestand will continue when Atlanta leaves. And a big series for the Cardinals. Clearly, they're playing against contenders. Good ball clubs that have been solid from start to finish. The Reds and the Cardinals and the Pirates, of course, have been neck and neck all season long, really. And the Cardinals have a number of games left against Pittsburgh, too. So you're not going to want to miss that Cincinnati series, though. We've got a chance to see a team that, well, we just like to beat those guys, don't we?
I would say so.
And they like to beat us.
I would say so. Big series, though, in a big couple of weeks. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, back to back to back. Here's Simmons, the very good-looking shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. If you like to watch defense, he is outstanding.
Very good range. Really is kind of the whole package. At one point, the Braves were talking about their young shortstop phenom, but they weren't talking about him.
Tyler Pasternicki.
Pasternicki had surgery for an ACL in August, but long before that, the Braves kind of stopped talking about Pasternicki when they saw just how good this Simmons guy was in spring training, and he had a big jump. He was an A-ball guy, but they saw the tools.
And a swing and a miss at that breaking ball. Third strikeout for Adam Wainwright. Now just one away from Chris Carpenter on the Cardinals' all-time strikeout list.
A lot of those strikeouts on that kind of pitch. A breaker, half swing for Simmons. Yachty does the rest.
Wainwright at 1,084 strikeouts. And after he passes Chris Carpenter, you never know. Maybe it happens tonight. He catches Dizzy Dean. Then he's got some work ahead of him with Bob Gibson. There's a line shot out to left and a trap kept in front by Holiday. And B.J. Upton is aboard. A 2-out hit out to left.
Placing the divot.
Might not be a bigger disappointment as far as free agent signings than B.J. Upton and what he's done this year. Coming into play, hitting 183, only 21 RBIs.
A lot of strikeouts, over 100 strikeouts for a guy that really hasn't played all season. They couldn't keep him in the lineup. They were actually talking about DLing him at one point, sending him to the minor leagues was kind of an option for a guy that you're paying that kind of money, almost unheard of. But it was just that bad for B.J. Upton, and getting the start here today, but he's in the 7th spot in the lineup.
Here is Elliott Johnson in the 8th spot in the lineup. And a fly ball that's lifted out to shallow left. Matt Holliday under it, puts it away. Coming up, it's Molina, Jay, and Colton Wong midway through 2. And there's no score on your home of the Cardinals, Fox Sports Midwest. He just might be your MVP. BJC difference makers, and this is when these guys score runs. In particular, look at Matt Carpenter, your leadoff man. When he scores one or more runs, the team is 49-19. If he doesn't score, 21-33. Goodness.
Well, I think he really is the guy that ignites the Cardinals offense. You have guys behind him like Molina, Craig, Holiday, Beltran to drive him in, but if Holiday or if Carpenter's not on, I don't think the Cardinals offense is the same. But when he is not in the lineup, you almost feel that it's almost a search to find ways to score because they're used to trying to find a way to drive him in.
Mentioned earlier, first pitch swinging by the Braves. Third in that department individually, first pitch swinging. In all of baseball, Yadier Molina. Very aggressive early in counts. 1 ball, 1 strike. And speaking of guys that could steal bases and score runs, one of the best ever, Lou Brock will be with us in the 4th inning.
He's that outfielder guy, right?
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep, he's the outfielder guy that's actually still on the outfield wall.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Number 20 out there.
Sweet Lou.
The 2-1 pitch. Slicing down the right field line, and a fair ball. Off the sidewall. Bobbled just a bit by Justin Upton, and Yachty is in with a double. He sprays it everywhere. It's tough to defend a guy like that.
Classic Yadier Molina hit. He does use all fields. Inside out swing. And really, as long as you square the bat head on the ball, even if you're taking it the other way, you're going to hit it hard enough to find holes. And Yachty just has a knack for finding the gaps in the other team's defense, and I don't think luck has anything to do with it. There are those that would say that.
He's just that good.
Well, some would say a hitter can't control where the ball goes, and I just think that's flat out wrong.
Here's John Jay, month of August, hitting .351. Last 2 days, Cardinals back-to-back facing lefties, and Jay had a seat, hitting .290 though against right-handed pitching. 1 ball and 1 strike. Molina, by the way, is up to 36 doubles this year. The Cardinals' all-time record for doubles by catcher is Ted Simmons at 40.
And you know the all-time record for Cardinals second baseman is also in danger. Rogers Hornsby has that record, which is 46. And Matt Carpenter already has 42, and he may pass that.
May shatter it
in a week to 10 days. And you're talking about Rogers Hornsby.
Yeah, that's
Ted Simmons. Yeah, that's a big name, but Rogers Hornsby.
Right. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Jay pulls it to the right side. It's fair. Past Freeman, and the Cardinals have an early lead. Jay on his way to second. Yachty scores the first run of the game. 1-0 St. Louis here in the second. And what else? It's a double.
First 4 hits of the game last night were doubles. In fact, the Cardinals had 3 straight with 2 outs in the 5th inning that led to 3 Cardinal runs, and now it's back-to-back doubles as John Jay pulls this one just inside the bag. Freddie Freeman fields his position pretty well, but he can't come up with that one.
Now it's Colton Wong. A lot of room to the left side. They're playing in at third, and the first pitch is a strike. Remember, Colton Wong started out 0 for his first 8. But since then, we're seeing more of the hitter that we've heard about, and his speed has been a factor too.
A couple infield hits in that.
And Wong pops it up. Left side, foul territory, and oh, what a catch by Simmons. Wow, what a play from the Atlanta shortstop. The fans here in St. Louis applaud the effort, the catch, the glove of Simmons. What an outstanding play this is.
So it's a great play by Simmons. Johnson and Simmons going after it. Simmons, outstanding hands, stays in the glove, but all the Braves were moving defensively as well. The second baseman, Elliott Johnson, was covering third to keep John Jay from tagging up, and Freddie Freeman was on second base to make sure he didn't get a big lead as well. I mean, the Braves were all moving on that play. Outstanding play.
Now it's Descalso, the 8th place hitter. Your former teammate, coach now with the Atlanta Braves, Terry Pendleton. In my time of watching baseball, I haven't seen a third baseman go back with his back to the infield any better and make that over the shoulder catch. Now
he
Simmons there.
Yeah.
makes that play, but that was the type of play Terry Pendleton would make at third.
No question.
He was awesome at that.
And lost really in that moment is the fact that it was not a very good at-bat for Colton Long. His job right there is to get the runner to third base, pull the ball on the ground if possible.
That's pulled, and this time Freeman on a hop makes a very nice play.
Had he done that, it'd be 2-0.
In steps Adam Wainwright with 2 outs and a runner at third. You think Wainwright has a little something extra every time he faces the Atlanta Braves, the team that initially drafted him, had him in their minor league system, then traded him away.
Well, he's really a Cardinal through and through right now, and he would not deny that, and I think Cardinal fans certainly understand that. But born in the state of Georgia and kind of getting a chance to play with your home state team, the Atlanta Braves, and imagining yourself being a part of that pitching rotation that was so good for so long. And I'm sure he envisioned playing golf with John Smoltz and Glavine and Maddox all around the country for years and years, and the next generation of Brave pitchers. But I think Adam is probably through that more than we think. He probably hears about it when he goes back home more than he hears about it here.
Falls behind, 0-2. Medlin has struck out 1. That was Alan Craig to end the first. The RBI for John Jay this inning, number 57 this year for him.
Have you been to St. Simon's Island in Georgia?
Beautiful.
You never really want to leave when you go there.
Strikeout of Adam Wainwright. John Jay swinging that red hot bat. You like defense, you get it there from Simmons. Then at first on a hard hit ball that saves a run. Freddie Freeman at first, and then Medlin picking up his second strikeout. But the Cardinals strike first. 1-0 after 2. Cardinals baseball is brought to you by Schnucks, your neighborhood hometown grocer. Go big at a participating Jack in the Box with Jack's really big chicken sandwich combos for only $3.99 plus tax. Beautiful night here in St. Louis, and after 2 innings of play, the Cardinals have a 1-run lead. One of those very hot bats for the Cardinals in the month of August is John Jay. He doubles in Molina, and Jay now is up to 57 RBIs. 57. Slow start, moved out of that leadoff spot, but you never see him sulk or complain about where he's at in the lineup. Just makes the adjustment, and now it's all coming together and having a pretty good season. It's Medlin, Schaefer, and Upton. 1 ball, 1 strike. The next strikeout for Wainwright. He's tied with Chris Carpenter, 3rd place all time on the Cardinals strikeout list.
1 strike away from getting Medlin, who is a switch hitter, batting from the left side. Very unusual for a pitcher to be a switch hitter.
And a ground ball that's hit to second. Colton Wong, 1 away. One of the byproducts of Colton Wong coming up is the extra work he's been getting at the ballpark every single day with Jose Oquendo. And it's not to be overlooked, the importance of Oquendo to this team and what he means in particular for the middle infield and Matt Carpenter and Colton Wong.
Jose was talking about Wong early this week, who is the 19th rookie, by the way, used by the Cardinals this season, the most since '97. Said that Wong keeps getting better every year, and that's kind of what you want to hear about a player defensively. And Jose's seen him for a couple of years now. When he first saw him, he had some things he had to work on, but he's so smooth around the second base bag. That's what I really noticed on the road trip, is turning a double play. He's just incredibly graceful the way he goes about doing it. He's very comfortable around the bag, and that's, of course, an important attribute for a second baseman.
And right on cue, Colton Wong, 2 away. Had a question from a fan on Twitter about Yadier Molina as Upton digs in for the second time. He's grounded out to short, and the question concerning Yadi, and will we see him play first base more and more down the latter stages of his career? I think it's a legitimate question, especially dealing with a knee. Think about all the wear and tear that he's had behind the plate. Mike Matheny can attest to that. And he's become such a threat offensively. You want to keep his bat in the lineup.
Certainly something the Cardinals will entertain down the road, but that's going to depend on the makeup of the team. Right now, the makeup of this team, first base is a logjam. Not that you're not going to put Molina in front of people, but you're really trying to find a way to get Matt Adams more at-bats as it is. And that's the only place he's going to play, and you want to play Alan Craig there. So you put Yadi at first, you're going to have to find another spot for Alan Craig, and then where does somebody else move to? So that's the problem with that particular domino, but I'm sure the Cardinals will entertain that as Yadi's career progresses. You just hate to not see him behind the plate. He's just so good.
Joe Mauer has done that a little bit with the Minnesota Twins. 1 ball and 2 strikes. And we have a chance to watch Yadi just take those ground balls before games. He is very smooth. Grew up as a third baseman, actually, and then shifted in his high school years to catcher.
I believe Yadi could play third base.
I do too.
Quite easily.
Yep. Two balls and 2 strikes on Justin Upton. And he got up. And with that strikeout, Adam Wainwright now tied with Chris Carpenter for 3rd on the all-time St. Louis Cardinals strikeout list. Carpenter. Adam Wainwright, 1,085 strikeouts. He recently, previous start, passed your very good friend, and we miss him, Bob Forsch.
We sure do. Last strikeout for Wainwright, just at the bottom of the strike zone. Upton didn't believe it, but we did. Congratulations, Mr. Wainwright.
Matt Carpenter, Carlos Beltran, and Matt Holliday for St. Louis. Gets underneath it. In the air out to center field. B.J. Upton. One away. Pretty darn good there. 23 strikes to the 29 pitches he's thrown.
B.J. Upton, the center fielder for the Braves today. Brian Jordan, our good friend here at the ballpark. He's doing pre and post game work for the Atlanta Braves, and since football started, they took their show on the road with the Braves. And of course, Brian does a little football pre and post as well because he knows that sport, having played for the Falcons in the NFL. And he is such a hit at the Cardinals fantasy camp, and he's one of many former Cardinals that are at the ballpark today. Venice brothers are here.
Next inning, we visit with the great Bob Gibson. And Lou Brock is here as well.
Tom Lawless at the ballpark.
And Beltran hits it in the air out to center.
And I heard Al Raboski's here.
Quickly 2 down, and it brings in Matt Holliday. AT&T Twitter poll: what is the best way to speed up the game? Enforce rule on stepping out for the hitters. The visits to the mound or pace of game is fine as it is. AT&T Twitter poll.
I thought Al was here.
Working on the radio side tonight. And Holliday swings through the first strike. Popped out to second. First time up, and he's 0 for 1. Wonder if Lou will be in a good mood when he gets here.
Lou is always in a good mood.
I've never seen him have a bad day. Lou Brock, our guest, next inning. He's got his annual golf tournament coming up, and we'll talk about that. High chopper towards second base. Gloved by Elliott Johnson, and the Cardinals go quietly near the bottom of the third. because I get to visit with one of the greatest players that has ever played this game, and that is Hall of Famer, all-century player Lou Brock. Always good to see you, Mr. Brock.
Well, Dan, good to see you and good to be here.
Where is the red coat?
The red coat is one of those nights that I didn't get the memo from Bob Gibson or Red Shingding, so therefore I had to wear this green one.
So usually it's always just opening day, but occasionally I'll see you come out with the red coat. This, though, is very nice.
Well, yeah, we actually love the red coat. You know, Stan Musial used to wear it all the time.
That's right.
And so it took us a while to get Bob Gibson into the mood to wear a red coat.
And he could set the tone, couldn't he?
Yeah, he did pretty good. And then he goes to the management, top management, and said, we all should have red coats that look alike. And that's how we have it now.
And that's how it all started.
Yeah.
Here's Freddie Freeman at the plate. Freddie Freeman, Chris Johnson, and Brian McCann. So tell me about, and I'm going to get into a bunch of subjects with you, Lou. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's start, though, with your golf tournament. When is your golf tournament? And I know it goes to a great cause.
For September the 30th on a Monday. And the cause is scholarships, kids, and more kids. This is our 22nd year, and we are happy about it. We partnered with Lindenwood University, and that's where it's going to be. 1 o'clock shotgun start.
Out at Whitmore, right?
Out at Whitmore.
And that's September 30th. That is a Monday. And I'm sure if you go to the Lindenwood website, they probably have info there, right?
Indeed. Look up Lou Brock and punch in Lou Brock. I shouldn't say punch. What do you call it? A tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you tap now.
Okay.
And you find Lou Brock.
Now, Lou,
Golf Classic.
I know that you are a technically savvy guy now because I see you on Twitter. I see you texting people, so you know how to get around the internet. That's no problem for you, right?
No, it's not. In fact, I have 2 granddaughters, and I got a son who works in that technology, and I have a daughter. And so they don't teach me, so I have to keep up with them. When I first started, Dan, I was trying to text my granddaughter. In the middle of the text that I was trying, I get a text from her asking, are you trying to text me? So that's how bad it was.
I got you. Yeah. I know you're quick now. Let's take a look at some of the great numbers for Lou Brock. The trade that brought him to St. Louis, and there it is. The hits, over 3,000. 938 stolen bases, career average of 293. I wanted to ask you, and you look about the same right now as you do in that picture, by the way, and you look like you still could be playing. By the way, I want to always ask you, what was, and I know you've been asked this before, but I've never had the chance to ask you, so I'm going to do it. Here is Chris Johnson at the plate, but what was more important to you, and what were you more proud of, the hits or the steals?
Well, Dan, when I first started in baseball, I was actually known as a hitter, and we had to be players with 5'2" players. That's what they were looking for, and you had to possess at least 4 of those just to get into the big leagues. So I was looking at baseball from that point of view. Right around 68, 69, you could be a role player and one-dimensional player. If you ran fast, you ran. That's all you did. And so it was hard for me to get accustomed to that. So 3,000 hits actually set the record straight for me. And it was the crowning of my career. And everything else was stars within the crowd. And to hit meant to be and not to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be, no matter how fast you were.
Who do you enjoy watching now?
You know, Matt Carpenter, he's the closest thing to Pete Rose that baseball has seen in a long time.
Really?
His ability to scrutinize pitches, take pitches. One thing about Carpenter, he's a little stronger than Pete because he can hit the ball in the gap. Pete could hit it in the gap, but not as often. And so because he had the ability to scrutinize the pitch and go deep into the count, only other person that saw do that was Pete Rose.
Interesting. When you watch the game today, what's your opinion as to why stolen bases are not really a part of the game as much as when you played?
Ballparks, and the fact that the power alley, which is where doubles, triples are hit, and look at the Cardinals this year, that's what they do. They hit it in the power alley and they score all these runs. Power alley during my day was 390. Today is like 365, 370.
Sure.
And we could hit a ball 390. It was an out. Today, that same ball is 20 feet deep into the left center field stand. So you don't jeopardize the stolen base. You actually go for the home run.
This is popped up into shallow left. Holiday coming on, and he'll make the catch. What a pleasure it is to have the great Lou Brock with us. He's going to stay with us. He doesn't know that through the break. You're going to stay with us.
I'm going to stay with you.
I like it.
You bet.
1-0 St. Louis. Occasion. 391 average postseason play, 21 games, the 4 home runs, the 13 RBIs, 14 stolen bases, 14 in 21 postseason games. And you look back at those great teams, and you were the catalyst, certainly, both those teams, but you were the missing piece in '64. I was going to ask you, I bet he's watching tonight. I bet he's listening, but Mike Shannon resting comfortably. Tell us about Mike Shannon and your relationship with Mike.
Well, Mike was an outfielder when he came up. In fact, I was playing right field, so Shannon came up, went to left field. Most people think I started in left field, but Shannon's ability in right field sort of sent me out to left field. So, man, Mike could get the big hit. You know, he didn't hit a lot of home runs, but when a guy made a mistake, he could really cream the ball. And he was a tough guy at third base or right field. He's one of those guys that go into a river and wrestle alligators necessary. He was that kind of a guy.
I would imagine that Mike Shannon kept things a little loose, too.
Yeah, we used to call him the Moon Man, and for a reason. But he was a good guy. He and Roger Maris sort of hung out together. Then Gibson and McCarver sort of hung out together. And I was basically hanging out with Bobby Tolan and some of my other buddies.
Red Shandy's, we had him in the booth, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, and he's always around and saying hello and dressing out and hitting the fungos and still part of the team at the age of 90. What was it about Red that got him to get those teams over the top and win championships?
I think, number one, he knew whether or not a player could play, and he allowed him to play. He did not interfere. He just said, listen, you're in the lineup, you know what to do. And that brand of ball was around for a long time, up until around '69. And then players began to drift into Major League Baseball who were looking for instruction. And so the game began to change from that day forward.
Ground ball that's hit to short off the bat of Alan Craig, and it brings in Yadier Molina. For this generation of fans, the young fans, they look to this guy right now coming up, number 4, as one of their favorites. You're still one of the greats of all time and a favorite here in St. Louis. You being a Hall of Famer and a guy that played at the elite level, what do you see when you see number 4 out there, Yadier Molina?
I saw a guy, the progress that he had made from the time that he came into baseball about 10 years ago. He was a kid. I talked to him a great deal spring training in the dugout. And to watch him progress as a hitter, this has been amazing. So he has reinvented himself and steadily reinvented himself. His stance today may not be the stance you see tomorrow.
Right.
And he adjusts according to who's pitching. And that's one of those qualities that you just can't train that.
So, Lou, how many steals would you have on Yachty?
That's a good question. That's a good question. A kid asked me that one day. He said, Mr. Brock, you think you could have stolen a base off Yachty? And I knew Yachty was the kid's hero. So I said, son, ain't done my career. I stole a lot of bases. It would have been interesting.
Well, it's been a little tougher now than back then.
Well, I would imagine that pitchers today do the same thing they did back then.
Well, I'm just saying because, you just had a birthday, and what are you, 72, 73?
74.
So it's a little tougher now than back then in your heyday.
I don't know. Coach and Juan and Jay and all those guys in spring training, I used to get with them once in a while, and we have a little brain session on base running. And every time we get to a point I got to show something, they would say, they would close their eyes, and I'm not going to look if you slip and fall. We're not responsible.
I understand. The great Lou Brock is with us. His golf tournament is coming up. You can go to the Lindenwood University website to find out more about that. It's not sold out yet, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, we need a few more people, especially sponsors, whole sponsors. We're looking for that as well. And this is our 22nd year. We have raised a lot of money, Dan, as you well know, over that period of time, several millions of dollars, and we hope to keep it going.
That's awesome. There's a ground ball that's hit to first. It's a fair ball. I got to say it, the best part of my job is having a chance to visit with greats like you. Thank you, Mr. Brock.
Well, thank you.
Always
it's
a pleasure. You bet. That's the great Lou Brock, the Hall of Famer. And again, his golf tournament coming up on September 30th to benefit scholarships for kids to go to Lindenwood University. Millions has been raised. Great work by Lou and Jackie Brock. Our thanks to Lou and Jackie Brock for stopping by. And again, you have a chance to sign up Lindenwood University and those scholarships to benefit those that would not have the opportunity to advance their education. Wainwright back to work. We're in the top of the fifth. Pitchers duel here early on. Wainwright has struck out 5. And he gets Simmons, Upton, and Johnson. Simmons made a dazzling catch on a pop-up in foul territory. 1-1 pitch. And it's fouled back. Wainwright is moved to have a Carpenter on the all-time strikeout list in St. Louis Cardinals history. Dean is next. And then Bob Gibson, if he can get there. The 2-2. I don't know if you had a chance, Rick, to hear much of the interview. I know you were entertaining in our booth, but something
I was interviewing the other Brock, Jackie Brock.
Well, something that stood out to me, Matt Carpenter, according to Lou Brock, compared him to Pete Rose. His command of the strike zone and how well he has adapted and made the improvements.
High praise.
You bet.
Always a good night at the ballpark when Lou and Jackie Brock are.
Such good people.
They're just great. Just love visiting with them, and glad they were able to talk about their golf tournament.
Two balls and two strikes. Andrelton Simmons, who's hitting .248. Popped up again. Calling for it. Carpenter. MLB.TV celebrating 11 years, and you can catch the rest of the 2013 season in HD quality. MLB.TV, where baseball is everywhere.
Lou was telling a story to the folks that were in the booth behind us about the time at fantasy camp when I had about 10 hits against the campers and he had 0. And when he came in after popping out, I went over to Red Schoendienst and said, Red, Brock's killing us. Do we have any options left on him? And everybody kind of nervously laughed, and then we realized, wait a minute, he's a Hall of Famer. We can't say that to him.
Can't mess with that
it's
guy.
one thing to kind of pick on each other,
right,
which we, of course, do nonstop, but it just didn't come out right when you're picking on Lou Brock. And he was about probably 65 at the time. And he was hitting rockets right at people.
And still can run.
And still could run.
Here is B.J. Upton. Fantasy camp, we mentioned how certain individuals will pay extra to visit and mingle and have a lesson with the Hall of Famers, whether it be fielding with Ozzie or pitching Bruce Sutter or base stealing and hitting with Lou Brock. And Lou Brock was in uniform 2 years ago and running the bases at the age of 72. And I guarantee you he was faster than half the campers.
And Brian Jordan here at the park was a part of that, with Lou and Ozzie teaching, and Brian and I were as mesmerized as the campers were.
High fly ball out to right, but with room, Beltran. B.J. Upton is 1 for 2, and it brings in the switch hitting Elliot Johnson. Hilton St. Louis at the ballpark and the St. Louis Union Station Hotel, the only hotels that give you home field advantage. For reservations, call 421-1776 or visit HiltonSt.Louis.com. Elliot Johnson with 2 outs. Wainwright looks very, very good tonight.
Sharp, not really missing in the middle of the zone, not hanging pitches at all. Every pitch with a purpose.
Looking for strikeout number 6. Here's the cutter. This is down and in. Just kidding Lou in between innings. I said, you know what? I heard you never had a bad day. Never seen it. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, I guess I should go to ask Jackie. He said, you betcha. Always smiling. 1-2 pitch. Gets into reach. Slowly hit up the first base line, and stepping on the bag, it's Alec Craig. The bottom of the fifth have a 1-run lead. 1-0 St. Louis. Back-to-back doubles by Molina and Jay in the second inning. We're at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin, Jim Hayes with you. It's now dipped just a bit to 84 degrees. Clear skies. And here is Colton Wong. Gallardo returning from the disabled list for Milwaukee against Homer Bailey tonight. That ball game is tied up at 3. Chris Davis, a 2-run homer at the top of the 6th. Brandon Phillips, a home run for Cincinnati. Colton Wong, first time up, had a runner at second base, nobody out, and popped out to Simmons. One of the best plays that we have seen as far as a catch is concerned of anybody on the infield this year.
I would agree. It was not just the distance that he traveled, it was the good hands at the end. You might find a shortstop that would get there and drop it. You might find a shortstop that would catch it if you could get there, but to find one that could do both, I'm not sure there is one.
Colton Wong makes the jump from AAA to the major leagues. What do you think the major adjustment he's had to make?
Well, I think, the game is always a little bit faster.
Hits it sharply to first, and a nice play there by Freeman.
But I'm sure he has coaches and teammates telling him, hey, just do what you've been doing. I mean, John Mozeliak said he got every check mark in terms of what they wanted him to do developmentally in AAA.
Tonight on FoxSportsMidwest.com, Ben Fredrickson looks at Adam Wainwright's Fantasy Football League Draft, which was held here yesterday. You can check it out on FoxSportsMidwest.com. And thousands was raised for Wayno's World.
Okay, Cardinal fans, you're Madison Bumgarner fans today. Pitching against the Pirates at AT&T Park. A late West Coast game. Charlie Morton will pitch for the Pirates. And I know some folks don't like the scoreboard watch, but I find it fun. I think it's part of the game. And if you don't want to watch the scoreboard, you don't have to.
Well, Matt Holliday was saying the other day that he's starting to watch. He said, look, it's human nature. We're in the race, and you watch Pittsburgh, you watch Cincinnati, you see what's happening with those two teams. He said, ultimately, I know it's cliche, you got to take care of your own business, but it's hard not to pay attention over a long season when you get to this level and you have a chance late in the season to get into postseason play, not to look.
Well, you're interested. You should be interested. If it starts to kind of overcome you and that becomes your main focus and you're in the middle of the game rushing in to see what's going on the TV of the game that's played in the West Coast, okay, that's too much. But if you're checking out the scoreboard between innings, there's a lot of downtime during a Major League Baseball game, and I don't think there's a problem with players doing a little scoreboard watching.
Third strikeout for Medlin. I've not heard as to whether or not Willie will be in town for this, but his jersey will be. The baby blue 51 of Willie McGee. The adult replica 1980s Willie McGee jersey. Saturday, September 7th, Cardinals.com/promotions. This will be a very, very popular giveaway. Already a lot of tickets have been sold, so get yours now. Cardinals.com/promotions.
I might have to get in line early that day.
Me too. Strike two, Wainwright.
Plenty of friends and family that would be interested in that jersey.
Asked the question to Al last night. I'm not sure. Of the non-Hall of Famers that played here in St. Louis, there's a more popular one than Willie McGee. I would have to say Mike Shannon is up there.
No question.
Willie McGee is right there. Jimmy Edmonds. 1-1 pitch.
So much so that as we think about the development of Ballpark Village, you know, I've said it many times over the last couple of months, some mention somewhere in one of the buildings there, maybe a little walkway, Willie McGee walkway, something to commemorate him. Now, I'm not talking about making him a Hall of Famer, but let's have his name and number, the memories of Willie McGee on our mind every day at the ballpark.
Corps Commandant and St. Louis native retired General Jim Conway. Missouri Friends of Injured Marines golf outing is this Sunday. Lance Corporal Justin McLeod, who became a triple amputee in Afghanistan, the guest of honor. Fox Sports Midwest sends our best wishes to Justin and thanks the Missouri Friends of Injured Marines for everything they're doing for our Marine and Navy veterans. is saying happy birthday to Fred Bird. This is the Fred Bird Birthday Bash weekend. Canvas print to give away tonight, a hat tomorrow, Build-A-Bear on Sunday. Then on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Cincinnati in town. Still very good seats available for just $8. And we are in the midst of a pitcher's duel here tonight.
One of our Toyota keys to the game was for the Cardinals to be ahead through 6 innings, hoping for a little more than 1-0. But Adam Wainwright can put one more 0 on the board, put a check next to that key. And the reason being, again, the bullpen of the Atlanta Braves is phenomenal. The Cardinals bullpen has been really good, but the Braves bullpen, particularly with Kimbrel at the end, is unhittable most nights.
Wainwright is set down 10 straight. The man at the plate, Chris Medlin, 12 straight. Medlin, Schaefer, and Upton. 1-1 pitch. Taken just a bit low. Combined, nobody has a hit since back in the 2nd inning. Thing I've noticed about Wainwright tonight, everything precise. There is a crispness to what he's doing.
And
nothing,
purpose.
Yeah, nothing left over the middle of the plate. Painting the corners. Very, very good. 2-2 the count.
So that pitch, Yachty sets up away. There's a plan. There's an idea. Well, if he doesn't throw the ball away, then maybe Medlin, even as a pitcher, looks like he's got a pretty good swing, might do something with it. Or it might be a ball. But Wainwright not only has the idea in place, but he has the execution to go along with it.
And a curveball, and he hung it that time, and a base hit into right. And it's Chris Medlin who snaps the string of 10 straight. So base hit into right. Get a look at the folks in Big Mac land. Enjoying some baseball tonight. We've had one in Big Mac land this year off the bat of Carlos Beltran.
Talk about execution, and Wainwright hangs a curveball.
McDonald's has topped the quarter pounder, by the way, the Bacon Habanero Ranch, the BLT. More quarter pounders to love only at McDonald's. Jordan Schaefer is 0 for 2. Called out on strikes and also grounded out to second. The third baseman Carpenter in on the grass. The outfield is straight away. 0-1 pitch. Bunting. Waino quickly to first, and Craig is on the bag for the out. Delayed call, and to make sure that he was on the bag, he is. The sacrifice is good, and an opportunity here for Upton.
Speed sure can make you nervous when you have to make a play like this. Wainwright knows that Schaefer runs well. Wide throw. Fairly close play at first. And a well executed bunt.
Justin Upton is grounded out to short and was called out on strikes back in the third. Again, low in the zone, catches the corner. Upton crushed a home run last night off of Joe Kelly, but really only Joe's 1 or 2 mistakes that he made, and Cardinals offense plenty. 0-1 pitch. Ground ball right side. Colton Long makes the play. He's been busy tonight. Don't forget, we have our What's on Tap, and tomorrow and Sunday right here on Fox Sports Midwest. Shelby Miller getting the start tomorrow as Upton is going crazy here with our home plate umpire.
Terry Pendleton, Freddie Gonzalez, both trying to kind of get a little explanation going. Paul Nart is our home plate umpire.
Any idea what that's
and
about?
I have no idea what that could be about. There was no play that I can't imagine that it was the called strike the pitch before. That's all I can think of, Dan. The first pitch was a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. You said at the knees. Maybe Upton didn't believe it. Maybe he said something. Maybe they yelled back and forth.
I think the strike zone's been good tonight.
And I agree.
All the while, now Wainwright just waiting to face Freddie Freeman. Freeman, 2-strike pitch, a base hit into right his first time up. He's also grounded out to second. They have the shift on for him. Wong is on the outfield grass. Seven ground ball outs to go along with 5 strikeouts tonight for Adam Wainwright. A lot of pitches have been down in the zone. A good movement. Now Upton was tossed from the game.
Maybe it was that first pitch at the knees.
I think it's got to be.
Maybe he complained about balls and strikes, and maybe Nart had a short fuse on that. You're really not supposed to argue balls and strikes. Maybe he said one of the many magic words as he was passing by.
Now back in the third, he struck out to end that inning.
Looking.
And he was frustrated with some of those calls in that at bat, so it carried over, I'm sure, into this at bat and that first pitch.
And now 0 for 13 in his career against Adam Wainwright.
2-2. Good pitch and in on his hands. And you mentioned the cutter. Tonight it has not been flat. It's had that little movement going down. The cut to it. The 2-2 pitch.
Very fine line on that slider with a cutter. What you're talking about being flat, Dan, it's the difference between having a feeling of throwing the side of the baseball and throwing underneath the baseball. If you can picture and feel the thought of coming underneath the ball and it has kind of a sideways rotation and not a lot of break to it, that's what you try to avoid.
The 3-2 lifted into right, and this game is tied. A base hit into right field on a 3-2 pitch. Medlin scores. We're tied up at 1-1. Freddie Freeman drives in RBI number 84.
Not a bad cutter. Middle in. Freeman gets enough of it. And the problem was Medlin hitting that hanging breaking ball to start this inning.
Foul back off the bat of Johnson. He has struck out twice tonight. He's 0 for 2. Really one of the only mistakes that Wainwright has made tonight. Leadoff hit by the pitcher Medlin. Swing the bat a little bit, but still it's the pitcher. That's one that will stick for Wainwright. Off the end of the bat, and that'll drop in for a hit. Runners at the corners. Hit for Johnson extends the inning to McCann.
About this location, that one a little bit flatter. Not a bad pitch, but just enough. You always felt that, and hitters will tell you, pitchers will tell you, when you miss on a pitch up and away, even if it's kind of a flare hit, you're still going to give up more hits on a pitch that's up and away that will flare the other way, and that's exactly what we saw there by Johnson, who has his first hit after striking out twice.
McCann is 0 for 2. Foul back. McCann, first time up, hit a line shot to second. Colton Wong is moved over near the line and playing on the outfield grass made the play. Next time up, lined out to left. Popped up. This could be trouble. Tough play here. Carpenter. Oh, he makes it. Carpenter saves the day. What a catch from the Cardinal third baseman.
Terry Pendleton, who?
Yeah. What a great catch that was from Matt Carpenter. Saves a hit, saves a run. We're still tied 1-1.
Umpire, and we have a little bit more of the history of what has happened here to Justin Upton, and here it is. It's a cutter down and away, and that's on the corner for a strike, and Upton, look at his response. That's his at-bat number 2. At-bat number 3, same pitch, same response. He can't believe it. Both of them right at the knees. So when he grounds out, we're not going to tell you what he said, but a loud expletive right at the point of contact, and I think he got thrown out right when he swung the bat and finally figured it out after passing first base, and he's not too happy about being thrown out, but I believe Paul Nart just had enough of the, let's just say, the complaints of Justin Upton, and he tossed him on his way to first base as best we can figure.
What a very good play, though, by Carpenter to end the inning. Keep this game tied at 1-1. Again, if you missed it, Lou Brock had the comparison of Carpenter to Pete Rose. So who do you like to watch today? And he said Carpenter really reminds me of Pete Rose. Very tough play here for Carpenter. The pop-up with 2 runners on. Hyundai replay.
That's the end of the play, which was hard enough. but taking the right angle to it was another problem for Carpenter that he managed quite well.
So B.J. Upton stays in center field. His brother Justin has been ejected. That's Evan Gaddis, who started game 1. So Gaddis is in left field, and Schaefer moves over to right. Carpenter, leadoff man, followed by Beltran and Holiday. Medlin is set down 12 straight. Ball 4. Those rare walks issued by Medlin. His first of the night brings in Beltran. Beltran has singled and fly to center. The Charter high-speed pitch of the night. Medlin at 91. Waino has hit 94. And Beltran loops it into shallow right center. Carpenter is going to be doubled off. It's a double play. The speed of B.J. Upton makes that play. And a rare mistake by Matt Carpenter. Double play, and there's 2 down.
The speed of Upton, part of that, but I think he also deked Carpenter a little bit. Made it seem as if he wasn't going to make that play, and then just came on at the end. And misjudgment, clearly, for Matt Carpenter. Not sure now. Is it going to drop? Now it's too late. Oops. It happens.
I think you got to bench him if you're Mike Matheny.
Yeah.
I mean,
right,
what's he doing?
Yeah.
It's the first mistake he's made this year, it seems like. It happens. Here's Holiday, the 0-1 pitch. That catches both McCann and our home plate umpire. Think about the National League East. Not many that follow this game. Beginning of the season, we're talking about the Atlanta Braves. Much of the focus on Washington. Then the Phillies. You think about their very good pitching, but yet older roster, and that came into play this year. And Atlanta, well, ho hum, they come in at 77-50. Outside of Atlanta, every other team in this division is below 500.
Got them both.
Mentioned the name of Joe Mauer earlier. You know, he's another one of those guys that's taken a lot of foul tips and dealing with concussions now. Two outs. The 0-2.
You're not really braced for it either, Dan. I mean, what happens is the ball's coming in. The umpire, what's he thinking about? Where is the ball? Is it a ball or a strike? He's not thinking defensively like, let me get out of the way of it. Catcher's thinking, I got to catch it, and where might I have to throw the baseball? So their mentality is so not about getting hit. So often they're kind of defenseless. And I think it's the jarring that happens because they're surprised by it. Because if they're not surprised by it, they're probably not doing their job.
Right.
And that's what's so hard about it.
Two of the better ones in this game tonight with McCann and Yadier Molina. Now, look at that mask there of Brian McCann. That is the old school mask. And not many guys are wearing that, nor that helmet. It's more of the hockey style mask that they feel is better for those that are behind the plate in trying to stop concussions. And then another story came out recently that talked about the mask that McCann's wearing that said, well, maybe we ought to go back to the old school because of the padding on the forehead. And you'll see in that side shot, if our director Tom Mee can get a camera to that, but the profile angle of it has a lot of padding. There it is on the forehead. Holiday. Wow. Oh, goodness. Way out of here. 2-1 Cardinals and a solo shot from Matt Holiday, number 17. I think he got all of it.
No question about that. Just a matter of time for Matt Holiday.
Number 17, RBI number 64. Comes on a 1-2 pitch. As Craig bounces it to short. And we have played 6 here at Busch Stadium. Sit back, enjoy this one. The Nissan drive of the game. Destroyed. Ballpark, and the bat speed 101.4 for Matt Holiday. Let's go back to the home run pitch. Down and in. Goodbye.
Very aggressive swing, violent swing in some ways. 432 feet. That is a long one.
Here's Simmons, who has struck out and popped out to third. Talked to Matt Holiday about going on the DL, and he said, I was against it. I felt good enough to stay and playing. Remember, he had the hammy issue in Chicago right before the All-Star break. And now in retrospect, it might have been the best thing for him and this team. He has come back with a vengeance.
I always go back to what Dave LaPointe taught me a long time ago. He said anytime he had a pitching coach that he was not familiar with, the first thing he'd say is, don't ever ask me if I'm tired, because I'm going to lie to you. Don't ask me if I'm hurt. You've got to figure that out, because I'm not geared to tell you the truth. I'm geared to compete. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Players don't want to self-evaluate negatively ever in terms of being sore, being hurt, being tired. And so, yes, you trust a veteran guy like Holiday or Yadier Molina, another case in point. You trust him to a degree, but at some point,
take that decision out of their hands.
You got to think past them. Now, there's some players you won't even ask them. I mean, you wouldn't even care about what they'd have to say, but veteran guys earn that right, as John Mozeliak has said, Mike Matheny has said. So, okay, so you earn the right to have some input, but you have to, everybody has to rely on somebody to evaluate beyond that, and that's really what the coaches and the management are for.
Three-two pitch. Wainwright trying to pick up strikeout number 6, and he's got it. Sunday, September 8th, the Cardinals Pennant Day, presented by Coca-Cola and the Pasta House. Get your tickets at cardinals.com/promotions.
Ruby Sissel is enjoying her 10th birthday, and she's a huge Cardinal fan. Glad to have her tuning in.
Here's B.J. Upton. What a thrill it must be for B.J. to be playing with his brother Justin Upton. Two guys that not only make it to the major leagues, but playing on the same team. What we've seen from Wainwright tonight, he adjusts his delivery. Sometimes he'll pause at the top. Other times he doesn't even bring his glove and the pitching hand above the cap. And this time it's the index finger again on top of that baseball for the curveball.
He says sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. It's a feel thing, and that's what pitchers do. They create. They're artists. And the pace changes a bit from Wainwright. You mentioned his delivery. Sometimes he'll change it. Aside from changing speeds by throwing a changeup or a fastball or a curveball, that's one way to do it, but he also varies his delivery from time to time.
Signed a 5-year extension in the offseason. Before it's all said and done, he'll go down as one of the greatest that ever pitched in St. Louis. From America's #1 pregame show comes the all-new Fox Football Daily, featuring an all-star lineup of experts and legends. That's on Fox Sports 1, weeknights at 5.
Dan, I know you recall Adam Wainwright appearing at the winter warm-up this offseason, and he's really admitting that there were times where he didn't feel that great last year, but he was looking forward to having a full, healthy season in 2013, and he's having just that. 2-1, St. Louis. Run on 5 hits, and this is how he's gotten his outs. 5 on curves, 2 sinkers, 9 cutters, and here's one of those curveballs that produces a strikeout. Vintage Adam Wainwright, top of the zone to the bottom of the zone. And the cutter, throwing the side of the baseball. A little movement right to left, cutting the corner. Upton didn't like it, but that too was strike 3.
And what do we have here? Adam Wainwright now third all-time in Cardinals history in strikeouts as he passed Chris Carpenter earlier tonight. Well, if you're John Sherholtz and you're the Atlanta Braves and their fan base and you see that, that's a homegrown product that was yours. And they rolled the dice. The Cardinals, to an extent, really rolled the dice at that time with J.D. Drew and Eli Marrero and giving up proven major league talent.
Well, in the case of J.D. Drew, he's a guy that actually developed a little bit more after he left Atlanta. He had some fairly decent seasons in the big leagues and really talented player.
It's another extra base hit for Yadier Molina. He has one double tonight. Why not number 2? And that's how we start the home half of the 7th.
Yachty plugs the gap. Knows right away that's a double. And you talk about the Cardinals not having team speed. We go back to that point, whether it's Carpenter or Molina. And some teams will say, well, yeah, we got a slap hitter that's going to get singles and he can steal a base. Well, if you got a guy that can hit a double, isn't that the same thing?
And now you have the duty of, you can drive him in, bring him in, but move him over. Jay, similar situation. That was back in the second inning. Yachty had a leadoff double, and John Jay brought him in and changed spots at second base. And Jay hits it the other way. Base hit. They'll hold up the runner, Molina. It's a good arm that we saw from Evan Gattis last night. He had a couple of throws in. He's a catcher by trade, so very good arm out in left.
Base hit for Jay, his second. Past a diving Simmons. Simmons has a big-time zone rating, too. He can get a lot of balls. Couldn't come up with that one. Jay not only moved Yachty over in the second inning, he drove him in. This time he hit the ball the other way. Didn't pull it, but got the job done anyway as it made its way to left field.
You know, your Freddie Gonzalez, your starter Medlin, only at 78 pitches. He does have 2 lefties in his pen, and the Cardinals have 2 lefties coming up. Does he make the choice to go to that bullpen now? Got the rookie Colton Wong and then Descalso. Now the Cardinals clearly could counter off their bench with a David Freese.
No disrespect to Colton Wong and Daniel Descalso, but I'm not sure you make the move if you're Freddie Gonzalez, although he's taken a long time to think about it, and he is going to do it. Very surprised. Low pitch count for his starter.
AT&T Twitter poll winner.
Just barely.
You know, we talk about it a lot. Call strikes, the various things we're talking about here, the visits. You know what, though? This is a beautiful game.
It's a great game. And the pace of the game, I think it's more of an issue for people who were trained on a faster pace of the game, older fans, but the Twitter crowd, typically a younger crowd, I think really is just grown up. Baseball is what it is. I don't see why it matters what the pace of the game is. It's just fine. So I think you've got to, that's probably where that line splits at 47 and 46.
Here is Scott Downs in our Chevy called to the pen. David Freese. The chess game is on between Mike Matheny and Freddie Gonzalez. Freese will pinch hit for Colton Wong.
And perhaps one of the reasons that Freddie Gonzalez goes to his pen is he has so much confidence in him. Medlin's been pitching so well. Can't imagine that he's at a point of being tired at 78 pitches. But you have a hot bullpen, so maybe he just figured, let's use it.
Freese hits it out of play. We've talked about it. The keys to the game, we've mentioned it a couple of times. The fact that this bullpen is so good. You have a lead late. You'll force the hand here of Mike Matheny to use David Freese. You didn't have to, but clearly this is the move that you want to make, the lefty-righty matchup. 0-1 pitch to David Freese.
And one of the reasons perhaps the chess match is going on right now in the 7th inning because both managers feel like the game's on the line right now. It's not the bottom of the 9th, but I think it feels like that to Freddie Gonzalez and to Mike Matheny. So that's why they're both making these moves.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. Inside fastball catches the corner. Crowd tonight 41,134. 4-1-1-3-4. David Freese as a pinch hitter this year, 1 for 1. Trying to bust him inside, and it's 2-2. Scott Downs was picked up before the trade deadline in an aggressive move by the Atlanta Braves. Picked him up from the Angels. The 2-2 pitch to David Freese. Gets away. Only runner that will advance is John Jay. 3-2, nobody out. Runners at second and third now as this crowd is alive on a Friday night here at Busch.
Now you've got first base open.
Saw him twist his ankle. Seems to be all right. Infield now drawn in. What an opportunity here for David Freese as Downs wants to talk it over. In case you missed it, oh, that left ankle. Three-two, and he got him an off-speed pitch. Here is Descalso.
Cardinals bring Pete Kozma to the on-deck circle. And you wonder if they're trying to keep Freddie Gonzalez from intentionally walking Descalso here to pitch to the pitcher spot.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure that means that Mike Matheny is committing to Pete Kozma hitting next. I think he's just showing him that.
The 7th straight game with 5 extra base hits for the St. Louis Cardinals. Highlighted by the home run from Holiday. Here's a 1-0 to Daniel Descalso. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Squeeze an option.
You think about that, but would you want to do that with a left-handed batter? But much easier, I would assume, to do that, Rick, with a left-handed pitcher.
I don't know if it really makes a difference whether it's a left-handed batter or right-handed batter. I think the pitcher is the more problematic thing. I think a lefty is going to have a hard time seeing any action behind it. But if you time it right, it works anyway. It doesn't make any difference. You don't go too soon.
The 1-1 pitch to Descalso.
2-1, a good count to do it. But again, with first base open, you have to assume that they might be very careful. May even throw a pitch out of the zone on purpose. Might even pitch out. Who knows? I'm curious as to whether or not we're really going to see Pete Kozma or not.
I'm with you. I think it might be a decoy. Pull them back and then make your counter move. 2 balls, 1 strike here on Daniel Descalso. This at bat may decide it. On the bench still, Kozma, Shane Robinson, Rob Johnson, your backup catcher, and then from the left side, Matt Adams.
One of the reasons I would not squeeze is they have the infield fairly back. So you don't really almost have to squeeze. Just hit a little ground ball to the short or to second.
Big pitch here in the game. The 3-1 to Descalso. 3-2. Milwaukee in the top of the 9th leading Cincinnati by the score of 6-4. The Pirates with Charlie Morton against Bumgarner against the Giants later tonight.
We may or may not see Kozma depending upon what happens here with Descalso.
3-2 pitch, and he walked him. Bases loaded, 1 out. Kozma being pulled back. Wainwright steps out of the dugout.
I think the point there is that Mike Matheny wanted them to pitch to Daniel Descalso. And if he'd have put Wainwright on the on-deck circle, they may have walked him intentionally. Now, they did pitch to him and walked him anyway. But I think that was what the decoy was all about. And so he is, in fact, going to let Adam Wainwright hit.
One out, bases loaded. And Wainwright looks at a ball.
The fact that Waino swings the bat decently weighs into this decision.
What about the bullpen?
Availability of Mujica.
Short bullpen tonight, too.
Weighs into the decision.
Been used a lot. 1-0 pitch. Wainwright crushes one. Out to left center. That'll stay in the ballpark. The catch is made. All 3 runners tagging up. How about Wainwright helping his own cause? 3-1. Deep enough that all 3 tag up.
Everything coming up roses for the Cardinals here in the 7th inning. The moves work. Wainwright does his job. situational hitting, getting the ball to the outfield, and I mean deep into the outfield, advancing 2 runners, Dan, as you said. Now Matt Carpenter can make it worse from the Braves' point of view with another 2-out or 1-out hit. 2-out hit, excuse me.
Carpenter walked last time up. He is fly to center and grounded out to second. Runners at second and third with 2 down. The pitch on the inside corner. Been talking about it all season long. You're Mike Matheny. You don't worry about this matchup one bit. Lefty-lefty on Matt Carpenter. Many times a manager makes the adjustment against these specialists, but not with Carpenter.
Good plate coverage. Stays in well on lefties.
The 0-1 pitch. 1 ball, 1 strike. Wainwright is over 100 pitches this evening. Against lefties, 291. Righties, 320. It stands out to me. How about the 4 home runs of his 9 against left-handed pitching? Runners at second and third. The 1-1 pitch.
The 2 ways a left-hander is often vulnerable to a left-handed pitcher. You'll see them get jammed inside because they're worried about the soft stuff away, and the pitcher will throw a sinker down and into a left-hander, and they get jammed a lot. Or they can't catch up with that off-speed pitch away, and they kind of bail and wail with their swing. But Carpenter doesn't do either. Talked about how good he is with 2 outs, but he has a very good approach against left-handers. You just don't see him bailing.
See that average 370 in this spot. A 1-2 pitch. Carpenter pulls it just foul.
So he tries to come in with a fastball, and he doesn't let himself get jammed. His hands are quick enough to get the head out and pull it just foul.
Wainwright's second career sacrifice fly, his first since 2008. And the Cardinals have a 3-1 lead. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Matt Carpenter. Outfield is straight away. Long look by Downs. Finally set. Here it comes. Chop to first. Freeman is there. Underhands to Downs. Cardinals strand 2, but Wainwright helps his own cause with some insurance. The sac fly, the RBI, and it's 3-1 after 7. And welcome back to Cardinals baseball. Let's go to our studio. Bomberito Sports Update with Pat Paris. All right, Pat, thank you. Wainwright at 101 tonight. The 7 innings, the 5 hits, the run, it was earned. And a strike.
Cardinals could have gotten more, but that one run has a feel of being maybe a difference maker here tonight. Wainwright pitching very well, just over 100 pitches. Doesn't show any signs of letting up, and Mike Matheny just wanted him out there for at least one more inning. He has the ability to get outs with low numbers of pitches, which I think also weighs into why you send Adam back out there again.
Tyler Lyons, expect him to make the start next week, so you, to an extent, a short bullpen. Westbrook went on the DL. Medlin only 78 pitches tonight. The starter for the Atlanta Braves. Very good, very effective. And Waino at 104. Deeper and deeper some of these starters are going. Turdoslavich at the plate. 1-2 the count. Pete Kozma is at shortstop. Descalso at third. Carpenter at second. What has been an entertaining night of baseball. And a ground ball that's hit to third. Descalso charges, makes the play. Turdoslavich retired. Wainwright, Holiday, Beltran, they seem to amp it up against their former teams, the ones that originally drafted them. Wainwright, Atlanta. Holiday, Colorado. And Carlos Beltran against Kansas City. Human nature to do that, I would suspect. A little extra.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a little bit of that. Sometimes it's maybe just arbitrarily true, and that doesn't really have much more than that. But, you know, the reality is when you've got a big sample size, it makes more and more of a difference. I mean, there's certain teams that you just feel comfortable with, you match up better against.
Little floater on the infield. A question right now, and I just said it a few moments ago, that Mike Matheny has let his starters go a little bit deeper lately into games. We saw Westbrook just 2 starts ago go to 124. Wainwright is at 108. And certainly, if you're Mike Matheny, he gets out of this inning 1, 2, 3. The option is there. He's got to be thinking about it right now. Does Adam Wainwright go back out for one more inning? Evan Gaddis at the plate. 1 ball, 1 strike. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow. Well done.
Thank you.
I can't believe you had that memorized.
Thank you very much. It didn't take that much long. Gaddis just struck out.
Slow down. Slow down, Eddie. Slow down. More outs to get. We're going to need you.
Home half of the 8th rolls in. David Carpenter, 39th appearance with a record of 3-0. The ERA is under 2. 58 strikeouts, 17 walks. It's our Chevy called to the pen.
We've talked a lot about the Cardinals developing good, strong arms, strikeout guys. Well, we can add this guy to the list because the Cardinals developed him in the Cardinals minor league system in 2008, 9, and 10.
And Rick, it's another converted position player.
Over a strikeout an inning in the Cardinals minor league system, and ultimately went to the Houston Astros and had some success with the Astros. Also played with Toronto. From Morgantown, West Virginia.
And Beltran shoots one foul. Watch out. Began the homestand by saying that this is a stretch of games that could define the season. Not just for St. Louis, but for Cincinnati and Pittsburgh as well. I think from an outsider's perspective, you looked at these 4 games and thought, this is dangerous. Well, the Cardinals right now are 3 outs away from at least earning a split. But why not try to tack on more tomorrow and then on Sunday?
You want to be optimistic. You want to be realistic. You don't want to be pessimistic. You think about Atlanta and Cincinnati. Boy, you win 5 out of 7 of those games. That's pretty good.
And Beltran hits it sharply to first. Freddie Freeman is there. All Sundays, starting 2 hours prior to every home game, you can enjoy games, prizes, and of course, get all your scoops with the free North Star ice cream treats while supplies last. That's in the Ford Plaza. Make sure and get those scoops. It's well worth it. Looking ahead to the 9th inning, Freeman, Johnson, McCann. So it won't be easy. Nobody throwing in the Cardinals' pen. Wainwright has a chance to finish what he started. Last time up, one of the longest home runs of the season hit by Holiday. .96 on the gun from Carpenter. And a foul tip held on to, and a strikeout of Holiday. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Bud Light, the sure sign of a good time. Here we go. And by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. And a ground ball, base hit into left off the bat of Alan Craig.
gives Yadier Molina one more at bat. His average currently with his 2 for 3 has been up to 335. Chris Johnson for the Braves 1 for 3 tonight. He's at 330.
Yachty 2 for 3. Milwaukee holds on. They defeat Cincinnati 6-4. Gallardo picks up the win. Cardinals can hold on. They would be 2.5 in front of the Cincinnati Reds. The Cardinals hold on. Pittsburgh loses. They wake up tomorrow in first place in a tie. 2 outs, runner at first as Molina looks at a strike. 2-1. The 2-1 pitch, and Yachty hits it out of play. Freddie Freeman will be due up first for the Atlanta Braves. He's 2 for 3. Chris Johnson among the league leaders in hitting, 1 for 3 with a pair of strikeouts. Brian McCann is hitless tonight in 3 at-bats. The 2-2, and Yachty hits it out to left. He's done it again. It's a base hit, cut off by Gaddis. Molina on his way to second. Oh, Yachty, and he's thrown out at second. Three-hit night for Molina sends us to the ninth.
Coming up after the game on the post-game edition of Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live. Pat Paris and Jim Edmonds waiting in the wings. Waino continues his assault on the record books. They'll have the latest. We'll have Mike Matheny's post-game comments. And Friday night means somebody is getting a hungo. Dan and Rick, Waino looking to go the distance.
St. Louis with the 8 hits tonight Atlanta only 5, Jim. And Wainwright has been awfully good from the first pitch of this game. It's 3-1 in favor of the Cardinals. The Atlanta Braves with 3, 4, and 5 due up against Wainwright. He has thrown 112 pitches.
I remember many, many years ago, Tom Seaver, who was a Hall of Famer, used to talk about a well-pitched game, and he said, when I would pitch a game that I would call one of my best, I could count the mistakes I made on one hand. And I got away with most of them. And I think you can define Adam Wainwright's game here tonight the same way. Very few mistakes. And he has just continued to pound the zone, as you mentioned, low in the zone all night long.
He has had 112 pitches or more 6 different times this year. Wainwright with the 4 complete games. Kershaw 3. Zimmerman also there. 1-2 the count.
So lost on the game currently, just how important it is for a guy to throw 9 innings. Game of specialization, bullpens, but every once in a while it sure is nice to have that bullpen sit and watch.
The 1-2. Trying to go up the ladder.
Does wonders for you. Everybody feels more refreshed the next day. Everything's set up better. And you think about the starters down the road that you want to have the bullpen fresh for.
The curveball lifted out to left. Holiday makes the catch. One away here in the ninth. Budweiser player of the game, Wainwright, currently at 8 1/3. 5 hits, 1 earned run, the 8 strikeouts. And with those 8 Ks, passing Chris Carpenter in the all-time Cardinals strikeout list. He is 3rd by himself. Up next, Dean, then Gibson. Chris Johnson, 1 out. Really took some off that breaking ball. 74 miles an hour. The career high, if you're wondering, pitch count 130. His high this year 122. Just missed. Somewhere Justin Upton is saying, you got to be kidding me.
That somewhere is the clubhouse.
That's right. 2 strikes on Johnson. Crowd would love to see strikeout number 9. The 1-2. Base hit into right, and the tying run comes to the plate. It's Trevor Rosenthal throwing in the Cardinals' pen. So there's your answer about Mahika, which also makes sense as to why, another reason as to why Wainwright has been extended in this game.
And conversations going on in that Cardinal dugout with Mike Matheny and his coaches, and he's getting input. And I think that's what you do. Anybody got an idea here? What do you think? And he's going to be the one to make the decision, and so far he's going to decide to stay with Wainwright. And I think the decision is based on the fact that Wainwright's stuff really still seems good here in the ninth. You can take the pitch count, factor that in, but it just seems to be one of those nights where he's strong.
One ball, 1 strike. At the plate, it's Brian McCann, and McCann is 0 for 3.
And that pitch, 92 with sink to it. High quality pitch. But he needs a few more.
The 1-1 into the Cardinal dugout. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Looked like it may have hit a Cardinal in there. Everybody seems to be okay. Many of them on the top step.
Wainwright steps off the mound. If the Cardinals were to turn a double play, they have a shift on here. Cosma at short would be your turn man either way. More than likely. Now Rosenthal getting loose. Remember, he pitched 2 games ago, 22 pitches in the 8th inning to get the final out in the 7th and 2 in the 8th. Then 10 pitches last night. The 6-2 win over Atlanta. So this could be potentially his 3rd game in a row. Wainwright would love just to keep him in the bullpen. The 2-2. Hit out of play. I'm with you, Rick. It doesn't seem that Wainwright right now is laboring.
No, and Mike's given him a chance to have this game be his. His other option really would be to have Choate in to face McCann, which I think is certainly another option. And I know he thought about it. I'm sure he thought about it, but I think the overwhelming evidence in his mind is a strong Wainwright. And he's our guy. He's our ace.
It's the other part of it.
He's our horse.
A 2-2 pitch. Here it is. Got him. Strikeout of McCann. 9 tonight for Adam Wainwright. Simmons, the final hope for Atlanta. The pitch count at 127 for Wainwright. And a high fly ball out to left. This should do it. Holiday is there. The Cardinals win it. Wayno goes the distance against his former team, the Atlanta Braves. 3-1 our final here in Game 2.
Wainwright outstanding here tonight. Matt Holliday's home run a big hit. Yadier Molina a 3-hit night. And the Cardinals pick up 2 straight victories against the Braves, who were 14 games out ahead of the Nationals in the East. So they are a very good team. The Cardinals have played very well so far.
Wayno, you know he loves it. Cardinals win it 3-1.